Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very special lunch hosted by the TV Collective. I'm Eddie Bozio, and we're here at BAFTA's headquarters in Piccadilly, and the clinking you can hear in the background is us being served our very special lunch. We are sat in a rather fabulous room around a table. To my left is the one and only Damian Jones. He's one of the UK's leading film producers. Many of you will know him for Kidulthood, for Adulthood, and for most recently, BELLE. Now, we're going to talk to Damian about his career. He's going to give us some advice on making progress and making films in the industry. But first of all, we'll start with Damian and say, Damian, where did it all begin? How did you get into this industry?
From the bottom up. But firstly, thank you for having me. I'd also, if you don't mind, before we dive in, I'll obviously answer your question, but I'd love to know who's here and what you all do.
Do you want to do a quick round table, just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do. Going to the left.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Johns, writer and broadcaster.
Miriam Kelly, production accountant.
Angela Ferreira, TV producer and live events producer.
I'm Jonathan Hansler, comedian, actor, screenwriter and playwright.
Bybreen Samuels, writer, author and publisher.
I'm Leslie Lee. I'm a TV producer and a writer.
I'm Kelvin Richards, director of photography.
I'm Toro Dixit. I'm a documentary producer and director.
I'm Ida Ashva. I work in diversity and inclusion for Creative Skillset.
Anne-Marie Goodwin, broadcast producer, director, and have one feature film under my belt.
I'm David Say. I'm an actor, writer, director, and now transitioning into filmmaking.
My name's Andy Epp, and I'm a screenwriter.
I'm Philip Briffett. I work in digital advertising.
I'm Clara Luca. I'm on the board for BAFTA, British Urban Film Festival.
Hi, I'm Leon John Baptiste, and I'm the founder of an online platform for Black aspiring filmmakers.
So, Damien, back to the question. You started from the bottom, you were saying.
I cut my teeth on, well, two ways. I was fortunate enough to get on-set experience as a runner and a runner-driver, back in those days when you were allowed to drive cast. And then I was able, basically working title films who were starting out and being quite successful, kept me in-house too. So I worked around the office, but what it allowed me to do over time was see both sort of physically how a film is realised, i.e. the on-set experience, but also after sort of learning what I could there, I was able to see actually what involved to get to that point, i.e. development and finance. Over time, I was able to sort of see who to go to financially, and then the development process and how important that was and crucial and critical, and, you know, if you don't start with a good script, you're never going to get a good film. I was a bit spoilt because I was able to see both sides. A lot of people sort of work in one and not the other. So it was a good sort of training ground.
At what point did you think, I'm going to be a producer and these are the kinds of films I want to make? Where did that come together?
It took, I mean, a long time. Just to go back, to put in context, I mean, there's some people who, you know, found better things to do with their lives, but the two other guys I worked on reception and washed up teacups with at Working Title, one of them is now the producer of the Marigold Hotel movies and In Bruges and others, and the other one produced the Billy Elliot movie and indeed is a producer on the musical. And we all started off together, you know, we all, sort of, it's nice getting together every few years just to remember, you know, back in the day. Frankly, the first couple of films I started out with trying to raise money for, you know, I was blessed that they never got made because they were bad, you know, they were not
Care to
good.
share what they were?
One was like a hitchhiker sort of serial killing, and in fact, the director of it was Jonathan Glazer.
Right.
And I'm sure he's happy that it never got made either. But, you know, we were just learning, and it just wasn't, you know, it was a genre piece, it wasn't very good. And, you know, and actually over the years, and it's true now as it was then, you know, there always is, I believe, a reason why your film happens or doesn't happen. And a lot of the time you don't realise it, obviously, and it's on reflection and in hindsight. But it's frankly, and you know, this goes with my own slate as well as anyone else who's, you know, tried and still trying. It's because it's not good enough. It's still not good enough. Now, it's either in the material, in the screenplay, the director, the cast, the budget, you know, the way you're going about it. It's too expensive, it's too cheap, it's not ambitious, it's too ambitious. But there's always a reason, because you're always competing, even though, you know, there's different projects of different genres and dramas, etc., you are competing with a finite amount of money. And so you are, in a sense, competing against those other projects. So you've got to be the best, you've got to be noticed. And quite often, you know, the projects that haven't got made of mine, when I look back, I sort of can see why. You've got to stand out. And that can be for a number of different reasons. But the whole package at the end of the day has to, you know, hold water. You know, I've made films that have been rushed into production and it's caught me out later because they, you know, the script wasn't actually good enough. And that, you know, when you finally see it, you know, there's nothing you can do about it at that point. You need luck and hard work and initiative. And I started off, you know, very self-indulgent. You know, it was sort of projects that I just liked, and I wasn't thinking about whether they were commercial or, you know, who the audience was. It was all rather naive. It's just sort of what I liked, and I'll try and make it. And over time, you know, my sense of what good writing was and mediocre writing, or a good plot versus you know, an original plot or an unoriginal plot, or, you know, characterizations and dialogue. Not to say there are projects I've passed on that have gone on to be huge, successful movies. It's not, I don't claim
Such as?
Well, I spent some time in the States, and you know, I passed on. I mean, Dumb and Dumber, and I went. You know, my reaction was, I mean, you know, it was the cultural divide and whatever. But I was like, these people are so stupid. Why does anyone want to see this movie? Obviously, that was the point of the film. It just, you know, went right over my head. And then I had a wonderful, my very smart assistant back in the day. Was adamant that I met this young British filmmaker who had made this, you know, for no money, this sort of movie in London about this cat burglar, and he had this script that was brilliantly written, all told backwards, and, you know, and I must meet him. He was getting everyone attention, and eventually, yes, I'll meet him, and the script was quite good, and I told him that, you know, I liked his script, but no one would go and see a movie told backwards. And that director was Christopher Nolan, and that movie was, you know, whatever the one...
Benjamin Button.
Anyway, but, you know, these things happen.
So how would you describe the role of the producer in film?
It depends on the movie. I've had a different role on all the films that I have produced. The way I like to work is basically the full package. So nowadays, my ideal scenario is that I have an idea that I then find a very talented writer who then elaborates and builds it, turns it something beyond my expectation. Similarly, with a director, you then get on board and it takes another whole sort of leap. And then, you know, cast, budget, and then I raise the money for it. But I always have a sort of, you know, a creative attachment, an emotional attachment. You know, the origins lay with me. I mean, collaborative, never just mine, but I have, you know, I've been a producer when I've just facilitated or just raised the cash or been the sort of for hire. And it's too hard work to not have an emotional involvement. So I need a sort of creative stake in it nowadays.
But if anyone's got a burning question right now they want to ask Damian as we make our way through our starter, please do. Just pop your hand up, introduce yourself and fire away.
David say, Damian, you said you tend to get an idea and then find a writer to develop that with you. What if a writer-director has a kind of very strong script already, script idea? Would you still be open to an approach and a pitch?
Yeah.
In that
No,
way?
I mean, you know, I'm open to get my material from everywhere, and I've worked with a lot of first-time writer-directors over the years. You know, my preferred way now is, not to say I wouldn't work with a first-time writer-director if I found something I wanted to pursue. But in terms of someone else's project, no, I mean, I get submitted material and I read it, and just rarely do I commit, mainly because I'm very much a one-man band, and I don't have time to spread myself thin. So, and my preferred way of working is to find something that I've come up with. But that's not to say that I would, you know, not consider someone else's work. I'd be foolish not to.
I'm Leslie Lee. I want to ask you whether you thought, I've heard it said that concept sells a film. It's a concept of a script sells the film, and because you were talking about how you had some idea, you know, that you start with an idea, so I wanted you to sort of expand on that a bit, if you could, please.
Well, not all good ideas are movies. You know, you learn that too, that the story may be fascinating, but actually it's not a feature film, or it's a better documentary, or it's just better as what it was or is an amazing story that perhaps isn't worth film treatment. So you have to acknowledge, you sort of have that discipline too, or your script never quite works, or, you know, there may be, you know. But I do think that when I've felt a project of mine start to come to fruition through all the feedback I've got, both positive and negative, there's normally a point where I can sort of encapsulate that project in less than 5 words. And when I do that, I know that I'm onto something. And it's mainly because when I'm pitching it, if I give someone that sexy sell, I've done their job for them, which they need to go and do to sell their boss. So when I go, you know, Meryl Streep as Margaret Thatcher, you know, Dad's Army, I mean, it's sort of there. You know, I mean, BELLE is harder, but, you know, you get there. So you still got to make the movie, it's still got to be great, it's still got to, you know, be 100 minutes of entertainment, and, you know, you need the substance behind the style. But I do think if by concept you mean, you know, strong idea and a strong marketing hook and sell, yes, that it's very helpful. Mainly because, you know, on the finance side, most people are sales folk. You know, they have to go and sell international territories or sell their UK MDs or whatever, and, you know, people have to see that they can make money out of it, either commercially or in the art house circuit, but still there's an audience for it.
Hi, Angela Ferreira. Really great of you to come to this and speak to us all. So 2 questions in one. How long is it basically from the time you have the idea to the film actually appearing on screen in general? And also, in the light of the hacked Sony emails, how much interference do you get from the studios with what your creative vision is?
I mean, it's how long is piece of string is from idea to, or anyone's idea or anyone's script to film. I mean, the quickest I've done, you know, through a combination of different reasons and factors was The History Boys, which was, you know, the play had been a hit and there was a window of opportunity to film it in the school holidays before they went on their Broadway or just after their Broadway tour or whatever. So that we did that in terms of, and the script was written by Alan Bennett on spec, and went out to market with it, and, you know, the whole thing happened in 6 months, which is amazing and fantastic. You know, BELLE took 5-6 years from idea to various scripts to various other scripts to HBO, in turnaround from HBO to BFI or UK Film Council, then you know, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I think, you know, same as, you know, Forrest Gump took 12 years, I think. I mean, it's sort of, there's probably good reasons too, though, going back to, like, why. I mean, BELLE wasn't ready, wasn't good enough, wasn't there until, you know, the time it got made. Sony, I mean, you know, I don't force it. I mean, that sounds just a nightmare. But it's not so much, I mean, anyone, and I have no issue with this, anyone who puts money into your project deserves a voice around the table. I'm not saying it should be the final voice or my way or the highway, but they should have a voice. So I don't believe in artists or filmmakers sort of being all protective and precious, unless they put in their own money in. And if that's the case, then fine. Otherwise, it's a collaborative medium. It's not, you know, unless you're the writer, director, producer, editor, composer, some people are, there are other people involved and you have to respect their opinions. If they're wrong, fine, you know, argue it out sensibly and in an adult fashion, and you'll prove them, you know, you'll win your argument. But I'm sort of, I understand, I think, both sides, so...
But can there be too many collaborators?
Yeah. Yeah, that's up to your producer, or, you know, there needs to be a strong voice too, and there needs to be one vision, but that doesn't mean other people can't contribute or help that vision come to or improve on it. But yes, there can definitely be too many cooks, so you have to, you know, streamline that process.
Hi, Kelvin Richard.
Hi.
How long or how far into the process did you bring on Amma, the director, and why her? And split that question again. When it comes to DOPs, obviously trying to get work on productions, is that your decision? Is it the director's decision? And which one overrides the other?
Working backwards. So DP is, again, it should be and has been on my productions decision made with the director. The finances have approval, but it's, you know, sort of, I make the decision with the director. And normally I don't even, you know, normally I'm presented, these are the 5 people we're meeting. And, you know, unless there's something radical about their CV or terrible story you've heard about how they hire every light ever made or something. You know, you normally, you know, you go with the director's instinct and you presume you can do a deal or whatnot. No, I like the heads of department to be chosen by the director, but on the basis that pool they're choosing from, you know, are experienced, professional, you know, have a good track record, or if not, then have a reason why to be chosen because they're exceptional because of, you know, it's normally out of relationships. It is.
Well, it's the whole track record thing, because then it becomes, as I'm sure you can appreciate, it becomes self-fulfilling, because unless you get the body of work, you won't have a track record. So therefore, how do you break that cycle? I've just shot. I've just been second camera on a big CBBC drama called Hetty Feather, 10-part series for BBC, and it was the producer that actually argued my case to get on, even though I'd actually shot, the last thing I shot for BBC was BAFTA nominated. So you feel as though, actually, if it comes down to financiers, I'll never be known to those financiers, so therefore I'll never get a chance to break into the next level. And that will go for any head of department. So it's a case of how that can change. Like, for example, I believe Amma hadn't done much work from her last thing to BELLE. So that's, for me, that was an inspired choice.
Yeah.
So there I'd say, well, why her? Because I'm sure there would have been other people that might have been well suited.
Look, I mean, I'd been a fan. I'd met her back in Way of Life days and been a fan. You know, and our careers or whatever drifted in different directions. And then when the script was in a place where it was to find a director, and Amma worked on the script too. I loved her writing and I'd loved Way of Life. You know, obviously, given the subject matter, there was an interest in a female director, black female director. It ticked a lot of boxes. BFI liked it. But she talked sense. I mean, she was hired because she was talented. She's steeped in Jane Austen. You know, she loves all that period stuff. So it was just a good
Was there
fit.
any pushback against that decision, or was that down to you at the end of the day just to push it through?
No, there were people who didn't finance the film because, not because they're racist, but from their business models, they were like, I can't sell this in Germany, Japan, or wherever because it's got a black lead and it's got a black director and a black writer, and, you know, it's just, I can't. Now, they're wrong and they all regret. I actually bumped into the bloke who was saying this. And he was like, that film is fantastic. I was like, I had no idea. And, you know, and Bankside, who sold it, who did sign up, you know, they felt all those issues were what was exciting about it. You know, they were like about breaking down those doors rather than sort of keeping them closed. So, but, you know, I had to go on a long journey to find Bankside. You know, we had a lot of no's along the way.
Eddie Rawcliffe.
I'm just interested in terms of when you decide which films or which writers you want to back and whose projects you take forward, how much you're thinking about the audience and whether it will find an audience. And I sort of talk about that from a sort of TV point of view, because in television we're sort of always concerned about who our audience would be. And is that the same with film?
Yeah, absolutely. Even more so. And the longer I've worked at it, the more, I mean, probably just my own, you know, awakening, but, you know, you realise that, you know, basically no one's going to give you any money unless they think, you know, there's an upside to it, be it on, you know, in Curzon small release or, you know, there's, you know, will that bring the art house crowd in? You know, I made a film, thank you.
Here come the rolls.
Called you know, Powder Room, that I actually financed myself with some lockbox BFI money. We made it for like just over 100 grand, and had a great cast, and it was a sort of messy girls' night out movie. And, you know, Sheridan Smith and Una Chaplin and others, and Jamie Winston. And it's really fun. It's really fun. And I think ended up on Sky eventually. But there was a movie that it was based on a play that actually was from Edinburgh called When Women We. And that fell between the stools. The multiplexes thought it was too raunchy and too small, and the art house cinema chains thought it was too commercial. And so we ended up sort of making about 5p at the box office. So there was, we thought about the audience, thought we'd get, you know, an audience in, but, you know, analysis completely failed. You know, BELLE was financed, you know, it was a 6 million quid, I think. Sounds like a lot of money for a period movie. That's no money at all. They ran their numbers. They were like, we can sell it as a Jane Austen-esque period romance in these territories, and we think it'll do this amount on DVD, and it'll get the the grey pound in, as they call it now, from the Marigold Hotel, and then the Jane Austen and the schools. And fortunately, it really struck a nerve in the States. So actually, everyone has benefited far more than they thought. This film I've just wrapped is Dad's Army, the sort of reimagining of that series with a new cast. And that was hugely debated amongst all the UK financiers about, and we still don't know the answer in terms of its eventual commercial success, and whether reimagining that brand has been a great idea or a really stupid one. But at the moment, everyone's really positive because of the press reaction to it. But that was all about, is there an audience? Anyone seen Mrs. Brown's Boys? So Mrs. Brown's Boys was a huge success as a film. Universal, who released it, told me this. They, I think Westfield Stratford is the most sort of most commercial cinema in London, and so basically, if you're at number one at Westfield, you've probably got a hit. Mrs. Brown's Boys was like, over the year, on average, like number 50-something, which you would think would mean it was a complete turkey. Mrs. Brown's Boys made all its money in mid-England and the north. Right. They packed it out, and there's an audience that was ready. Don't often go to the cinema, but that series they watch on TV are big fans of, and and some marketing, distribution person knew that. Yeah. That's why that film got made. If they'd just been listening to London, it would never have got.
Hi, my name's Donna Marie Dow. I'm a screenwriter. The question I had is, there's kind of a lot of talk and a lot of rhetoric that black films, it's a niche market and they don't sell, but you've kind of proved the opposite. You've had a lot of success with a lot of black and urban films. Can you tell us a bit about how you go around getting money for that?
I don't know if I can tell you anything that anybody doesn't know already. Just got to have a great story. I've been fortunate. I was introduced to Noel Clarke. Kidulthood as a script was just fantastic and unique, and was like, I'd been living in the States and whatnot and just come back and was looking for something to get my teeth into, but it was the writing. The writing was really strong, really unique, and just a new voice. I, was led to believe, and it was the case, that it was an authentic, depiction of certainly his upbringing or where he grew up. I mean, everybody turned that movie down. Everybody turned that movie down. UK Film Council, Channel 4. That was partly because Noel and the director, were the easiest. But, they were very, opinionated and had a really strong vision, and it paid dividends. But no, it was eventually made for private equity. The exhibition, the cinema owners were not horrified. They could not believe what happened with that film. They were like, because all these teenagers were flocking to the cinema to see that, and still to this day, it's sort of a cult, classic, and spawned the sequel. That hit a nerve, so that was sort of luck of design. But I take no claim. That was Noel's vision, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And we continued the association with Fast Girls, but that was just a sports. That was a feel-good sports. It didn't find an audience. It found an audience eventually on television. And I think what we did wrong there, we pitched it too old. We should have pitched it to sort of 12-year-olds and down. But we pitched it to sort of savvy teens who were like, not interested. They were like,
But going back to Kidulthood, because you knew that was strong writing, but how do you convince, like you say, the foreign markets, like the European markets, that this is going to sell? How do you do that?
You don't make it for that. We made it for a price where it only made sense in the UK. And actually, ironically, that's exactly what we've done with Dad's Army. Dad's Army, we've made it for a price that reflects the value that is perceived in the UK and Australia, and there's Scandinavia and Benelux. So it's gravy after that. If it does play as a standalone comedy, fantastic. But no, they've hedged their bets. So you have to find the right budget level for your project.
I'm Breen. I'm quite interested in how you balance the tension between creativity and the commercial side of filmmaking, and then the different types of business models that can support a film project.
Oh, it's never easy, but I've been fortunate to date that I've never had a complete sort of division between the finance and the filmmaker, maybe once, but the film was very good. You know, it's sort of, it's a getting to know you. It's like a relationship. So, you know, I do feel that you once you have your partners, be they financial or creative, you know, everything has to be discussed and open. Actually, I've made a film that I think the financiers thought they were making one film, and the director thought he was making another. And that turned into like, you know, hell in post-production. So I wouldn't make that mistake again. But it's just, I always put people in the room together. You know, I don't claim to, you know, I'll front the project, I'll sell it as much as I can. But you know, you've got to meet the filmmaker and talk to them, and you know, it's their vision at the end of the day. It's not mine, or it's our collaboration, but they're the one who's going to execute it. So, you know, I know it can change. And it is, you know, it's not a science. You know, things do change, or an actor's performance takes it in a different direction. The way I like to work is, you know, sharing information and just being upfront about it. I mean, you know, you have to sometimes choose the information to share, but creatively, most of the time you want everyone to be on the same page, because otherwise it'll get nasty later. And business models, they keep changing. I've made 30-odd films now, and you would think they would follow a pattern, but they really don't. I don't know if that's due to the lawyers and all their fees, having to reinvent the wheel each time, but it is amazing. I mean, I don't really work, you know, I'm an independent producer. I don't work in the studio system that much, so they don't fully finance my movies. I mean, even Dad's Army, which is Universal, is not fully financed by Universal. There was crowdfunding involved in that.
But is there a rise in private equity in terms of financing films?
I think there is, but it's just as conservative. It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
I find, you know, as in it, you know, they're coming from the city. I'm always a bit nervous of private equity, actually, if it hasn't done it before, because they come in slightly naive, not in their business plan, but in their sort of their expectation, and you have to sort of manage it carefully, because it doesn't add up. You know, the film industry is really, you know, I mean, that's why the studios do their franchises and stuff, because, you know, they think that that recognisable brand, they can regurgitate it, and that makes and there's you know, there is some truth in that, but even those run out.
So as an independent, how do you go about financing a project?
Well, I mean...
You go to the bank?
You go everywhere. I mean, literally, you go everywhere. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, obviously, now I have relationships, hopefully, you know, good ones with people who've been successful with films I've worked on or produced, and, you know, I know where to go, but, you know, if they all turn you down, you need to be able to just keep going. So, you know, this time round I went into my first EIS just tax scheme back movie with Dad's Army. So that was the first. You know, you go to sales companies, you go to the studios, you go to the mini majors, as they call. You sort of go to everybody whose business it is to invest in films, and hopefully you get some or all of them interested. And then you're probably going to need another component somewhere, be it the BFI or... I mean, here you would always start... If you have the BFI and the BBC films or Film 4, your film will probably get made. It should get made, because they can do it between them. But two, a UK distributor and a sales company will pay attention if those two bodies are already interested in your film.
Hi, I'm Leon Jean-Baptiste. I know we've touched on it a bit already, but I wanted to ask your opinion on audiences and distribution with regards to more diverse or black films. Because as an avid cinema goer, I've noticed we're told a lot of the times there's not the audience for them type of films, where in my experience, sometimes there is, but the actual film isn't actually put into the cinema. Fortunately, BELLE, I'm from North West London, BELLE came into cinemas in my area, but other films that have come out recently, like Gone Too Far, haven't made it into cinemas in my area when there's people that actually want to go and see it. So I wanted to just hear your thoughts on that and what the way of tackling that is, you think?
It's not my area of expertise, exhibition, distribution. It doesn't answer quite why Gone Too Far didn't or didn't get its release it perhaps deserved, but I think it's in America, maybe it's just being introduced here, where, you can actually, if a community or the residents of a certain area request a film, they'll play it. And that's something that's, I think, becoming more and more the case with digital distribution now, or you know, that facility. So if you lobby your local Odeon or... I don't know, you know, it costs money, and they're probably looking at their bottom line. You know, they're probably going, OK, so if we, you know, distributor had gone too far, you know, picked up gone too far, they think they're going to make X amount, but to put it in those cinemas, they're going to have to advertise it, cost money, trailers, you know, print advert. So they probably just, you know, it's probably a numbers game at the end of the day. And they probably think that even if the screenings sell out, they'll probably still not make their money. They just go, well, it's got a better life on, you know, as a TV premiere or a... I don't know what was the... I mean, it's not, you know, I don't know if that's the answer. I know it's depressing. You know, it also there may be something better out. I mean, you know, I haven't seen the movie, and I know she's a talented director. You know, I look at why certain films of mine never played, and at the end of the day, if the audience isn't turning up, then, you know, eventually you have to look at yourself, or I have to look at my own projects. You know, I've made films that I'm really proud of, but actually no one went to see them. And in hindsight, were they better on television, you know, as their platform? You know, I think dramas are really hard to make in this country unless you have a movie star. You know, we would not have got The Iron Lady made, which is another of my films, unless Meryl Streep had said yes. We wouldn't have made that film.
We had a question in from Jeff Bannis on Twitter about the quality of writing in Britain. We seem to have been recognised internationally. What's your view of the standard of writing in the UK at the moment, Damian?
Oh, I hate these general questions. I think it is screenwriting, I think, is definitely improving. From my experience, you know, we have there's excellent television writers, there's excellent, obviously, theatre writers, playwrights, and we have that whole heritage. Screenwriting is a different beast.
You sound cautious about the standard of screenwriting here.
No, well, it's hard to, you know, there are some great screenwriters. You know, I've been lucky. I've worked with Abby Morgan, and I've worked with, you know, Frank Cottrell Boyce has just written something for me, wonderful writer. You know, Hamish McCall has just written this wonderful comedy. But, you know, I think it's just hard to talk about it as generally. I think it's slightly a cultural thing, you know, America is more sort of versed in it because they sort of grow up with it differently. I think film is a sort of heritage. But I do think it's changed a lot. But what I also find is that, you know, the British screenwriters who have real talent, and actually this goes with a lot of the directors too, you know, it's not that they get poached, but, you know, the other side of the pond, Hollywood calls, and, you know, you get paid more. And so, you know, people get in demand, and they're not available. And or if they are available, you know, sometimes their price is slightly... you know, difficult to meet. So the talent goes to work where they can get the most work for the most pay, which is, I guess, probably pretty standard of most industries. And, you know, so a lot of the time they end up working in Hollywood, and good luck to them.
There's some talent around the table. We've got any writers with us at the moment?
Oh, yeah.
So pitch away.
Hi there, my name's Waris Islam. I'm a writer-director. I guess my question is really, in the UK, we have public bodies like Creative England, Film London, that inspire the original voice or the filmmaker to make something fairly unique and original. In the US, writers tend to sort of write more genre, or certainly things that sell, that they're inspired to be a bit more mainstream. And I just wonder if in the UK, if being commercial is a dirty word, you know, because ultimately for the industry to thrive, it's whether we can support a commercially viable industry with making returns on films, etc., as well as being original. But I find that in the UK, that isn't something that's celebrated. That's kind of my answer.
No, it's interesting, and again, I don't know if there's one. I certainly don't have one straight answer for that. I think commercial a dirty word? No, but certain... I guess there's different definitions of that. And, you know, most genre movies, if we're talking genre movies, you know, I think it's fair to say, you know, there's normally some American involvement, while there's certain other, you know, UK financiers who don't, you know, their whole sort of raison d'etre is something, you know, high-end drama or something slightly different. I mean, it's so hard to be general without... You just need to generalise when, you know... So, Iron Lady, was that commercial? Yes. You know, it was hugely commercial, but was it originally conceived as being that commercial? No, you know, obviously with our leading lady and, you know, but there was a question about, you know, Thatcher, who would go and see that, etc. You know, I don't make... and this is part of my hesitation. I don't make action movies. You know, probably Dad's Army is my first broad comedy.
Action movie.
I like to see them, but I just don't know how to... You know, I haven't done a horror. I like to watch horror, but I'm clueless about how you would develop. So in the world you're talking about, the writers who perhaps work in those genres, I don't really know because that's not my area of films that I want to make. I like to watch them. I like, you know, I'm happy that other people are making them so I can enjoy them, but I just don't make them myself. There was one of the co-writers on Fast Girls, Jay Basu, I think has actually done rather well in Hollywood writing. I mean, he's commercial and doing well. So I don't know, it's tricky and I don't... There's just no one answer, you know.
It's just a general consensus, I suppose. When I'm developing something that's slightly commercial, I get more attention, say, from my manager in the States, and over here it's sort of taken apart. And I think one of my, one of the things I feel that because there's no film markets in the UK, well, there's very few. The writer isn't, from the very early stages, sort of in touch or interacting with what a sales agent or a distributor would like at the end of the process. We're sort of very concerned about our original voice, which is a wonderful thing, but it's all just about the artistry. Whereas I think in the States, because there's a lot of American film markets and whatnot continuously, the writer from the conception level is already thinking about audience, you know, already thinking about a market and trying to... Because even the independent films are fairly mainstream too, not just the studio films. So I just wonder if that's just the DNA of the UK.
Again, it's tough. I think that after you have your first success, your first hit, you'll be meeting sales agents and they will, you know, probably what you're pitching now, if it's the same as what after your first hit, you're pitching exactly the same thing, they'll be buying it. You know, it's all perception, it's all about success, it's all about what you've achieved, the people who turned down BELLE now want to be in business with all the people behind BELLE, you know, I mean, and that's just the way it goes. But, you know, that's fair enough. I mean, there's directors and writers that I've not given the time of day and now I wish I had, you know, it's just how it goes.
Going to open the floor up now. Just pop your questions in, where you go.
Hi, I'm Phil Briffett. I'm interested particularly in the pitch. I love the way that you can conceptualise a film into 5 words, 3 words. I heard that Alien was pitched to 20th Century Fox's Jaws in Space, and they gave the entire budget just for those 3 words. So if you haven't got any network, which I haven't got in the film industry, you've got a great screenplay, sending you the screenplay would not work. You've just said it. You've said, look, unless I'm interested, passionate about it, I'm not going to jump on it. And this is a really kind of finite question. What should I do? Should I put the concept, 3-word concept on the front of the letter? What would you recommend is the best way just to get in and get someone to read it? And even if the screenplay is rubbish, to send it back and say, look, this is rubbish, you need to do this, this, and this. Because at the moment, I can't get that past that first step.
Yeah, I mean...
Just got to bang down doors.
No, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything. No one's going to give you... If they don't like it, they're not going to give you feedback. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not going to give you feedback.
Yeah.
You know, you just, and you know, and I passed on stuff that, you know, as I've said, I shouldn't have passed on. So it's not like I'm ever saying, I'm right, you're wrong. You know, I would say good luck, you know, and, you know, I'll look forward to seeing it in the cinema. It just wasn't for me. I just think you should keep probably doing what you're doing. You should try and look at films and television, the writers and directors and producers behind those, and try and approach them through their agents.
Direct,
you know,
through the agent.
Through the agent, or direct, you know.
Or could you do it directly?
You need an agent.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you can, you know, do any, you know, within reason, anywhere you can.
Just with the concept, not with the entire thing.
You should just say what you just said. You know, that you have this. You think this is strong. This is the idea. You have a script. Finding it hard to break down doors. You know, you rate their work. People always like a bit of flattery to pay attention. You know, could they give you some advice? Could they, if they like, you know, just sort of. But go to people you rate, or you find your own agent. But probably doing it through. You know, you want to start a relationship with a creative that you admire, and then maybe that will go somewhere.
Okay. Sorry, final question. The first person you go to as the producer, would you recommend that that's the first one you... Because you've talked about it in a different way. You said you'll get the director and then the actors, and then you'll go and try and get the
No, I
financing.
think if you have an idea for a director, but it sounds like you need someone to sort of... You need someone right now who has a foot...
A network, yeah.
A foothold in the industry. And that can be any... It can be a writer, it can be a director, it can be a producer, it can be, you know, I don't know, an assistant director who just worked on or works on this director's all their films or whatever. You just need to find that way in. And you should keep going with producers you don't know and agents you don't know. And the concept that I was describing, those took time. It was sort of, you know, in a way I was stealing it off other people, you know, and then sort of encapsulating it. So, you know, I don't know if putting it right on the front of the page is the, you know, because they're still going to read it.
Absolutely,
you know?
okay.
You still got to deliver. You know, you can have the greatest pitch, but unless your script delivers too, it's, you know.
Over this side of the room.
Come after me. Hi, Damian. Andy, Monday Castle. You said initially you were making films because you just had a passion towards them and you loved what it was that you were doing at the time. What was the moment of revelation for you, in your experience, that you thought, actually, I can really make a go of this? And, you know, when did it sort of start turning into that business-minded sort of job attitude? And was there ever any point that you felt like, I'm going to give up on this because it's just...
Is that what you're at, Andy?
That was yesterday.
I have made a couple of features which have, you know, kind of not been commercially successful. They've toured festivals, upwards of 30 festivals, so they've got critical acclaim. Financially, no one's going to listen to them. You know, I mean, or, you know, commercially, they haven't been sort of rewarding. But yeah, so in some ways, I make my living out of TV, but it's interesting to know that part of your experience.
I think I'm unemployable doing anything else.
Yeah.
But, no, it can be soul destroying, absolutely. It can be a very lonely existence too, you know, everyone's turning you down, no one's interested. Or they are interested and no one goes to see your film, you know, I mean, I've had that happen too, that's, you know. I don't know, was there one, you know, I like creating entertainment, and that moment when it does work, when all the, you know, all the pain and ache and hard work and blood, sweat and tears finally pay off, and you actually made something that people want to see and are enjoying, and you sort of go, oh, that idea I had back in the day and now it's come to... That's a good moment. Mm. That's a good plan come together. So that's a nice feeling. But, you know, I've had films that I've completely thought, this is fantastic, everyone's going to love it, and then no one, you know, or you get slagged off by the critic, or, you know, it's a very subjective industry.
Yeah. But what was the film for you that kind of changed the game, in a sense? What was that film that was the most commercially successful initially for you? Iron Lady. Yeah. So that's still quite a long way into your career then.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to follow up on Andy's point then, in the States there seems to be a move towards actors, producers and directors going into TV. Yeah. So I'm just interested in what you think about that, and personally for you as well.
I think that's happening, yeah. It's happening here. Myself included, hopefully, one day.
Surely people are banging down your door, it can't be one day.
No, I think, you know, it's all about the material. You know, I find myself fortunate enough in a position where I can get it in the room, but I still, you know, it doesn't mean anyone gives me a check. You know, I still have to have the material that they want, or the package they want to buy into. No, and television, yes. I mean, it's a quicker turnaround. I believe a shorter development process. It's more, as a business model, I believe it's more lucrative because you, as a producer, legally you retain the rights.
Yeah. In the UK, yeah.
As in film, most of the time you give your stuff, you know, the rights up in perpetuity.
Oh, do you?
I mean, it's a license, but it's renewable. And so yeah, a lot of upside to television. But yeah, I imagine that trend will continue.
So those of us in TV shouldn't give up just yet.
No, stay.
That's where the money is. What do you think of the online platforms that are emerging? Netflix, Hulu, Amazon.
Well, they're huge, aren't they?
Yeah. Tempting for you? Or attractive?
Well, again, I look at, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
In terms of global markets, with the recent signing of the film agreements between the UK and China and the massive audiences over there, has that shifted the kind of projects that producers and funders are more willing to back or looking for?
I'm sure it has. Again, because I don't have anything that fits, as far as I'm aware, that fits that co-production in terms of subject matter or, physical shooting and locations, etc., then I'm afraid I'm one of those people that unless I have a need to do it, I don't sort of learn it. So I know that treaty now exists or that co-production now exists, but what it quite means I couldn't. But if I had a project that, was shooting there or was a story based there or story, here that travelled backwards and forwards, then, I'd look into all that. But I have been contacted by some financiers who are very keen to sort of, say they're working out of China and have access to money, but I just don't have anything to present.
One of the things that's happening in the industry at the moment is the BFI have launched this 3-tick agreement for producers. How's that likely to affect you? And do you think it's a good way forward to diversify to diversify the industry more, if that's even English?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I actually have yet to submit a project to the BFI since they've implemented that, but can't track record. I should tick quite a few.
Quite a few boxes.
But I think it's a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
What do you think's prevented producers in the past from taking on diverse casts, diverse production teams? What do you think the problem's been?
I don't think anyone. Again, I can't speak for everybody. I'm not aware anyone consciously not casting colourblind, but I believe also, there's a story to tell and you have to be true to that story, so you cast appropriately. And if that means you cast whoever you like, fantastic, whatever race, creed or colour. But if, I don't know, a literal Dickens adaptation, then, that's a literal Dickens adaptation. Or, or maybe not. Maybe the director comes in with a new take on it, and that's fine too. But, yeah, again, without looking at a specific casting or, I mean, look, I just made, Back to Dad's Army, and, there's very little diversity in that.
We're just coming up for dessert.
Any last question?
Last
I
question.
just wanted to ask a technical question. BELLE was shot 4K, I believe.
God, don't ask me.
But the reason why I asked that is because obviously...
Ask Ben Smith.
It was shot 4K. And the reason it was why, because obviously a lot of theatres only have 2K projection. And bearing in mind 4K would have had a direct impact on your budget, I was trying to work out, because it's not about future-proofing, because the film's come out now. So I was just curious as to why you shot it 4K.
Because Ben sold me.
Okay.
And promised me it looked beautiful. In fact, it was my first ever film shot, not on film.
Oh, OK.
So he double sold me. We were like a bit of a guinea pig. I think he did a very good deal.
Oh. That's interesting. I thought it was a conscious effort for future-proofing for something. I just wasn't too sure if there was a production decision behind it.
Ben's CV, I don't know.
Just as the pudding arrives, Damian has to depart. So can we first of all thank the TV Collective? Can we thank BAFTA? And can we definitely thank Damian Jones for coming and answering our questions?